When I held my husband's right hand, I realized the body in the coffin was his twin brother, and the man in the scholar's robe beside it, comforting his brother's wife, was my husband, who should have been dead. I was shocked that he was willing to give up his title and status for love, unaware that he had planned everything long ago, just waiting to inherit both family lines and gain all the benefits. Unfortunately, man proposes, but God disposes. He didn't know that the child in my womb was already 2 months old. Since he has forsaken his own status and title, let him fully embrace the life of a collateral branch. I left the palace with a heart full of joy, ready to tell my husband that I was 2 months pregnant, only to see the entrance of the Marquis's residence draped in mourning white. The steward, tears streaming down his face, stumbled to my sedan chair. "Young madam, the heir has passed away." A wave of dizziness washed over me, and Shashu quickly steadied my arm. "Princess, please be careful." Without another thought, I stumbled and rushed into the residence. The mourning hall was set up in the ancestral temple of the Marquis's estate, with the entire estate shrouded in grief. A pitch-black coffin was placed in the center, surrounded by white candles and plain flowers. Lying in the coffin was none other than my husband, who had bid me farewell with a smile just this morning when he left the house. "Husband," I cried out in sorrow, rushing forward, unable to believe the truth. I took his right hand, hoping to feel his warmth once more, but froze instantly. The calluses on this hand were clearly on the fingertips, left by holding a brush daily, while my husband, who was highly skilled in swordsmanship, had calluses on his palms. It felt as though my mind had been struck by lightning. I turned back in disbelief. The man in the scholarly robe, though his face was filled with sorrow, was still holding Bai Yuro in his arms to comfort her. This man was my husband, Pei Jin, the heir of the Marquis's estate, and the Pei Jin lying in the coffin was actually his twin brother, Pei Yu. I hadn't yet grasped why he was doing this when I saw him kneel before my in-laws. "Father, mother, your son is incompetent." Today, while returning from offering incense at Guangyuan Temple outside the city, we encountered bandits on the road. My elder brother, in order to save me and Yuro, was severely injured by the bandits. Fortunately, we met General Zhong returning to the city, who saved our lives. However, before we could enter the city and find a doctor, my elder brother succumbed to his injuries and passed away. Now that my elder brother has no heirs, I cannot let his lineage be cut off. I am willing to take on the responsibility for both branches of the family to ensure my elder brother's bloodline continues. I beg father and mother to grant me this wish. After saying this, he bowed his head to the ground, presenting himself as the perfect younger brother, wholly devoted to his elder brother's legacy. "So that's it, Pei Jin, oh Pei Jin, you've made quite the clever plan." Sure enough, upon hearing this, my mother-in-law, who had been weeping in sorrow, was the first to stop crying. Exchanging a glance with my grief-stricken father-in-law, she revealed a look of being swayed by the idea. He crawled forward a few steps on his knees, embraced his mother-in-law's legs, and said with a solemn expression, "I beg you, mother, to grant us your blessing." His mother-in-law, however, was stunned, her eyes filled with disbelief. You, my son, what a tragic fate you have," she cried out in anguish. Then pointed at Bai Yuro with a face full of resentment and shouted, "It's all your fault, you bringer of misfortune. Give me back my son's life. If it weren't for you insisting on going to offer incense and having both brothers escort you, how could my son have lost his life? Bai Yuro, you wretched woman. I never should have brought you into this household in the first place." "Mother, it's not Yuro's fault. Both my elder brother and I went willingly." Pei Jin immediately stood up and pulled the sobbing Bai Yuro into his embrace. Seeing this scene, his mother-in-law grew even more furious. She staggered, on the verge of fainting. Fortunately, his father-in-law quickly stepped forward and caught her in his arms. "Madam, You must restrain your grief and not harm your health. Yu's words are not without reason. The father-in-law, suppressing his own sorrow, tried to console the mother-in-law, seeing the mother-in-law gradually calm down. Though her face was still streaked with tears, she was clearly beginning to consider the feasibility of the idea. I let out a cold snort in my heart, stood up, and said, "The matter of my husband's heir is not something for second uncle to worry about. I have not yet informed father and mother, but I am already carrying my husband's child in my womb, now 2 months along." As my words fell, the room fell into silence. The father-in-law was first incredulous, then overjoyed. The mother-in-law, however, turned her gaze to Pei Yu, who stood there dumbfounded. His face was a mix of shock and disbelief. "Such an important matter, sister-in-law. Why did you not inform the family earlier?" "I had no idea before either. It was only today when I entered the palace to dine with Her Majesty the Empress that I smelled fish and started vomiting. Her Majesty summoned the imperial physician to examine me, and only then did I learn that I was already 2 months pregnant. I had planned to return home and share the good news with my husband, but who would have thought?" As I spoke, I couldn't help but start weeping again. "Then, sister-in-law, how can you be sure that what you're carrying is definitely a boy?" Pei Yu still wore an expression of unwillingness. I immediately wiped away my tears and replied with pride, "Even if I give birth to a daughter, I can still ask my uncle, the emperor, to pass the title to her. At worst, I can arrange a husband for my daughter in the future." Seeing that I had invoked the emperor, my in-laws no longer dared to make things difficult. But Pei Yu's expression grew even more unpleasant. The mother-in-law started scolding Bai Yuro again. Her weeping and wailing prompted Pei Yu to plead for her, but unexpectedly, this only made the mother-in-law even angrier. I used the excuse of protecting the pregnancy, but I didn't even bother to observe mourning for Pei Jin. After returning to the Hengwu garden where I lived, my maid Shishu helped me rest. She was about to advise me not to be too sad and to think more about the child in my womb, but seeing that I showed no sign of sorrow, she couldn't help but wonder. "Usually, the princess seems to care about the prince consort. Why is it that now that he's gone, you don't seem sad at all?" I couldn't help but laugh and said, "Dear Shishu, such a good thing should be met with laughter." Shishu was even more bewildered. I said disdainfully, "Since someone is willing to give up their title and status just to stay with their beloved, we should help them achieve their wish." Shishu was shocked. "Princess, are you saying that the one who died wasn't the prince consort, but the second young master?" "Yes." From the moment I felt the calluses on Pei Yu's hands, I knew it wasn't Pei Jin who had died, but Pei Yu. Although the two of them looked alike and their clothes had been swapped, I recognized it at a glance. After all, the calluses on the right hand of the deceased were not on the palm but on the fingertips, a result of holding a brush for years. Yet, as twins born of the same mother, one was a scholar and the other a warrior, and it was the younger brother who loved literature. I suspect my mother-in-law recognized it too, which is why she was even more furious. That Bai Yuro, the daughter of a minor 8th-rank official, if my mother-in-law hadn't taken pity on her for losing her mother at such a young age and brought her into the household to care for her, none of this would have happened. She managed to ensnare both sons. One lost his life, and the other gave up his title and status. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but snort coldly. I wondered where he found such great courage to abandon wealth and status for true love. So he was actually planning to inherit both branches of the family. Unfortunately for him, he didn't count on me being pregnant. Today was originally supposed to be the 4 of us going to the temple together. It was only because Bai Yuro said she wanted to go to Guangyuan Temple to burn incense and pray for an early pregnancy. Just as we were about to leave, a palace eunuch arrived, summoning me to the palace to speak with the empress. Pei Jin should have accompanied me into the palace. But upon seeing Bai Yuro's reluctant expression, he said to me, Since Her Majesty the Empress has summoned you for a talk, Princess, please go to the palace on your own. I'll accompany my younger brother and cousin to burn incense and also pray to the Buddha to bless us with a child soon. And so, the three of them went. I had never noticed before that even though Baiyuro had been married to his younger brother for 2 years, he never once referred to her as sister-in-law. Always calling her cousin, many of the excuses in the past were about an elder cousin caring for his younger cousin, but now, upon careful reflection, every detail reeked of ambiguity. Since the Empress kept me for lunch and served my favorite braised fish, I started feeling nauseous at the smell of fish. It was only after the Empress summoned the imperial physician that I was found to be 2 months pregnant. I had originally planned to surprise him when I returned. But I ended up receiving his surprise first. I am Princess Jiaoyang, Lin Jiaoyi, the eldest daughter of the Grand Princess and the Emperor's most beloved niece, as well as the nominal wife of the current heir to the Yongning Marquis estate, the eldest son of the Yongning Marquis estate, Pei Jin, and the second son, Pei Yu, are twin brothers. Pei Jin is more inclined toward martial arts, while Pei Yu leans more toward literature. Both of them have adored their younger cousin, Baiyuro, who was raised in their household since childhood. Baiyuro was the daughter of the Marquis's wife's younger half-sister, who had passed away early. The Marquis's wife pitied her for losing her mother at such a young age and having a father who remarried, so she took her into the household to raise her. Little did she expect that both of her sons would become infatuated with her. My uncle, the Emperor, doted on me more than his own princesses. When a foreign tribe requested a princess for a political marriage, and none of his own daughters were of suitable age, some people set their sights on me. When my uncle saw the petition requesting that I be granted the title of princess and sent to the foreign tribe for a political marriage, he immediately arranged my marriage to the heir of the Yongning Marquis's household. This effectively blocked the marriage alliance. Pei Jin was exceptionally handsome and stood out as an outstanding young man among the nobility in the capital. Naturally, I had no complaints after all. What young maiden doesn't dream of love? However, my main focus was on avoiding the political marriage, and I didn't look into whether he already had someone in his heart. He also treated me with great respect, bringing back pastries and candied fruits to cheer me up whenever he returned from official duties. At that time, I was brimming with confidence. As Lin Jiaoyi, a princess of the commandery, my status was even more esteemed than that of an ordinary princess, and my beauty was renowned as the finest in the capital. It never crossed my mind that my husband might not care for me. As for that Baiyuro, I had looked into her background. She was merely the daughter of a minor 8th-rank official, hardly someone I would take seriously, if not for her being Pei Jin's cousin. She wouldn't even have been fit to speak with me. Moreover, she married Pei Yu just 3 months after our wedding. After our marriage, I noticed that Pei Jin always showed a touch more tenderness toward Baiyuro. Whenever he brought pastries and candied fruits for me, he never failed to bring a share for her as well. Once, I couldn't resist teasing him. The commandery prince is especially kind to Sister Yuro. For a moment, his eyes flickered with panic. But then he playfully tapped my nose and said affectionately, "My younger brother and I grew up with our cousin since childhood. I treat her like a real sister. How could you, as her sister-in-law, be jealous of your own sister-in-law?" I gave him a disdainful look and didn't take the matter to heart. But I never imagined that he would now give up his status and position for the sake of his true love. Oh no, he does want it. Marrying into 2 families. What a brilliant idea. He can continue to enjoy the status and position of the heir, while also openly staying with his beloved, and I even have to thank him for giving me a child. What a perfect plan. Ah, what a pity. Thinking back now, mother-in-law must have hated Baiyuro to the core. The night passed without incident, and the next day I rose a little later. The emotional turmoil of the previous day had left me utterly exhausted. I used the excuse of a threatened miscarriage to avoid keeping vigil at Pei Jin's bier. After a light breakfast, I noticed Shushu standing nearby, looking as if she had something to say but was holding back. "What is it?" I asked, after hesitating for a moment. Shushu gritted her teeth and said with an indignant expression, "Last night, the Tinghe Pavilion called for water 3 times. My heart ached, and I let out a cold laugh. How utterly impatient they are," Shushu continued. "This morning, the mistress was furious and gave the second young master and his wife a good scolding. To avoid airing the family's dirty laundry, she used the excuse of failing to protect the eldest brother and ordered the second young master to keep vigil for the heir, while punishing the second young lady by making her kneel in the ancestral hall for 3 days. The second young master tried to plead for leniency, but the mistress pointed at his nose and scolded him, asking if he had any shame before his deceased brother, leaving him speechless. After hearing this, I felt even more chilled and thought it was unfair to Pei Yu. I wondered if he would be so furious upon learning that his dear brother had taken good care of his wife 3 times in their bed on the very day of his death that even the coffin lid couldn't hold him down, and he would come back to life. "Shushu, let's go. It's time for us to offer incense to the heir." Dressed in mourning clothes, I took the lead and headed toward the mourning hall. Upon entering the mourning hall, I lit 3 sticks of incense and placed them in the incense burner. Only then did I turn to look at Pei Yu, who was kneeling nearby. The moment our eyes met, he guiltily lowered his head. I sneered with a mocking expression. "Second brother and second sister-in-law truly share a deep bond of affection. It's just a pity that, with your eldest brother watching from the heavens, seeing the brother and sister-in-law he risked his life to save entwined like mandarin ducks before his spirit tablet. I wonder what he must be thinking." Pei Yu looked up at me in shock. "Jowie, let me explain. How dare you, Pei Yu, who gave you the audacity to address this princess by her personal name?" I rebuked him sharply. "Princess, sister-in-law, please let me explain," he stammered nervously, trying to defend himself. "There's no need for explanations. Do you dare to say in front of the heir that you have never done anything to wrong him?" I stared at him coldly, and he couldn't meet my gaze. Eventually lowering his head and falling silent, since second brother has never regarded the heir and me as his elder brother and sister-in-law, from now on, there will be no further ties between our main branch and your second branch. I also ask that you not appear before me casually. I snorted coldly and turned to leave, returning to Hungwu Garden, thinking of Pei Yu's look of shame and regret. I felt so pleased inside that I wanted to laugh out loud 3 times, but on the surface, I still had to maintain a heartbroken expression. 7 days later, Pei Jin was buried, and from then on, I truly became a widow, but I paid no mind to anything else, focusing only on taking good care of my pregnancy. But even if I don't go looking for trouble, I can't stop Bai Yuro from always wanting to come and show off in front of me. Under the guise of comforting me, she would subtly flaunt her affection in front of me every other day. She knew full well that Pei Jin had abandoned his identity to play the role of Pei Yu for her, and in her heart, she couldn't help but want to show off in front of me. Every time she subtly mentioned the bond the 3 of them had since childhood, and how well her 2 cousins treated her, it was as if she feared I knew, yet also feared I didn't. When she couldn't resist mentioning again how Pei Yu had been so considerate the night before, I didn't even lift my eyelids, replying coolly, "It's a good thing that second brother and his wife are so loving, but even though we don't expect second brother to observe mourning for the late Commandery Prince, it's still inappropriate for news of a pregnancy to spread during the mourning period, tarnishing the Marquis's reputation. If the prayers at Guangyuan Temple truly come true, I wonder what the late Commandery Prince would think, knowing this from beyond the grave." Bai Yuro's face turned deathly pale as she stumbled away in a disheveled state. I watched her retreating figure, unable to hold back a sneer. If she really spread the news of being pregnant during the mourning period, I wonder if Pei-yu would come back in her dreams to strangle her. Shushu, pass down the order, from now on. Cancel all previous subsidies for the second branch. Notify the accounts office that any expenses from the second branch exceeding 50 taels from the public funds must have my token. Since she had the leisure to come and show off to me, it seems she's been eating too well. The next day, the meals delivered to Tinghe Pavilion were reduced from 4 cold dishes, 4 hot dishes, and 2 soups to 2 cold and 2 hot vegetarian dishes. Pei-yu looked at the food laid out on the table and his face darkened. What's going on? How dare the main kitchen withhold my share? Bai-yu, standing nearby, wiped away her tears pitifully. The servants in the kitchen wouldn't dare do such a thing. It must be the princess's orders. But what have I done wrong to offend the princess, my sister-in-law, that she would punish my husband like this? I'm going to ask her what kind of princess authority she's trying to flaunt this time. Pei-yu threw down his chopsticks, stood up, and headed toward the Hungwu courtyard. But at the courtyard gate, he was stopped by my maid, second young master. My princess has said that her status is not what it used to be. Please wait a moment, I will inform her and then come back to you. Pei-yu was taken aback for a moment, then quickly realized that, in his current role as the younger brother-in-law, barging into the widow's courtyard would be inappropriate and hard to justify. He had no choice but to wait at the courtyard gate for the maid to announce him. Bai-yu hurried over shortly after and happened to run into the returning maid. My lady invites the second young master to come in. May I ask why you are withholding our second branch's share? As soon as he entered, seeing me reclining on the soft couch, he didn't even bother with formalities and directly questioned me. Withholding, second brother must be mistaken, as the eldest and legitimate branch, according to ancestral rules. We are entitled to 70% of the family estate in the future, while the remaining 30% is to be divided equally among the younger brothers. Previously, the second branch's expenses were no different from ours, but out of consideration for the fact that you and my husband are twins from the same mother, he asked me to provide additional subsidies. Now, I have simply withdrawn those subsidies, and everything is being handled according to the rules. I gave him a cool glance and replied nonchalantly. Pei-yu was taken aback for a moment, then remembered that this was indeed the case, and for a while, he didn't know how to explain. Bai-yu, sobbing, said, "But where have I offended my sister-in-law, that she would withdraw the subsidy? I apologize to my sister-in-law, and I beg you not to make things difficult for my husband." Hearing her still trying to stir up trouble for me, a cold glint couldn't help but flash in my eyes. Sister-in-law, please don't misunderstand, it's just a matter of following the rules. How could it be about offending me? If there's any displeasure, it's only that I feel heartbroken for my late husband. I looked into her eyes, a hint of mockery curling at the corner of my mouth. The two of them felt inexplicably awkward and could only find an excuse to leave in a fluster. I gently stroked my belly, though it was not yet showing. This little life gave me the motivation to keep fighting for him. Has there been any news about the matter? I asked someone to investigate earlier. Yes, my lady, it's all arranged. You'll be able to watch a good show tomorrow, Shushu replied. The next day, I woke early to the sound of commotion outside. Before I could even ask, Shushu began to explain. A young woman named Maya has arrived at the Marquis's residence. She's a courtesan from the Red Sleeve Pavilion and claims to be carrying the second young master's child. She redeemed herself and came here seeking him. She has already been summoned by the madam to the main hall. Oh, this is indeed a good show. We mustn't miss it, I said with great interest, heading to the main hall with my maids. In the hall, my mother-in-law sat at the head, with a young woman kneeling before her. Pei-yu and Bai-yu stood to the side. Bai-yu's eyes were red and she looked on the verge of collapse, as if she had suffered a great blow. Although Peiyu was supporting Baiyuro, his eyes were wandering over Maya. "Greetings, mother," I bowed, and the Marquise quickly motioned for me to sit. "Why have you come to the main hall? You're with child and have endured so much hardship lately. Don't worry about formalities, focus on taking good care of yourself," she said, holding my hand with a look of guilt as she urged me. I was also missing mother. And I wanted to inform you that I have cancelled the additional allowances previously given to second brother and his wife. Mother-in-law was taken aback for a moment, then realized that Baiyuro and Peiyu had upset me. "You decide, in the past, it was you and your elder brother who doted on them. But now it's only right to follow the rules." "What is this?" I pretended to have just noticed Maya kneeling on the ground. "Ah, what a misfortune. They say she is an acquaintance of your second brother from outside, and now she is carrying his child." "Oh, already carrying second brother's child. How old is the child?" Reporting to the princess. "Not yet 2 months," Maya replied with downcast eyes and a submissive demeanor. Baiyuro swayed, on the verge of fainting. Peiyu quickly caught her in his arms. Her face was filled with sorrow as she looked up at Peiyu, only to see a look of confusion on his face as well. It was then she realized that none of them knew whether Peiyu had truly been involved with this Maya or if she was really pregnant. The group still had to be careful not to reveal any flaws in front of me, and for a moment, their eyes shifted uncertainly. My mother-in-law must have realized this as well, and it dawned on her that the child in Maya's belly was likely the only bloodline of her second son. She made a decision on the spot. Since there is already a child, there is no reason to let the Hu family's bloodline be left outside. You should take her as your concubine. However, since we are still in the mourning period, we cannot hold a ceremony, just bring her directly to your courtyard." Although Baiyuro was unwilling, she couldn't change her mother-in-law's orders. Moreover, Peiyu didn't show the slightest hint of reluctance. From then on, the Lotus listening pavilion became lively. Maya quickly demonstrated her skills, showing a sorrowful and affectionate demeanor towards Peiyu every day, reminiscing about the beautiful times they had spent together. Peiyu couldn't tell whether what she said was true or false, but upon careful consideration, it seemed very much like the romantic and poetic style of his younger brother. Maya's gentle and delicate demeanor, in contrast to Baiyuro, had a different kind of charm. While dealing with her, he couldn't help but pay a bit more attention. Maya's skills were leagues ahead of Baiyuro's, and within a few days, she had managed to lure Peiyu into staying overnight in her room. Baiyuro was heartbroken, weeping day after day, while Peiyu carefully apologized to her. From then on, the two women competed for Peiyu's favor every day, each employing their own tactics. I sat in the warm chamber of Ruijin Hall, idly toying with a jade Rui scepter, a faint, elusive smile playing at the corners of my lips. The Tinghe Pavilion had been quite lively these past few days, with Baiyuro and Maya locked in a fierce rivalry. "Princess, the second young mistress has gone to pay her respects to the madam again," Shushu reported softly. "It seems she wants the madam to take her side." I absent-mindedly stroked the jade Rui. "Oh, she's already losing her patience. But the madam won't intervene on her behalf after all. The one in her belly is the second young master's only heir." Sure enough, the maid soon came to report that Baiyuro had been reprimanded and returned to Tinghe Pavilion with reddened eyes. But how could she swallow this humiliation after being scolded? I guessed she wouldn't hold back for more than 3 days. And sure enough, it turned out just as I expected. "Princess, there's trouble over at Tinghe Pavilion." Shushu came in holding freshly picked magnolia flowers while I was embroidering tiger head shoes for my unborn child. "This morning, the second young mistress made concubine Mai kneel on the bluestone slab to teach her proper etiquette, claiming she was instructing her on how to serve with ink and brush. She ended up kneeling for a full hour. I leisurely bit off the gold thread. My second sister-in-law is quite impatient. The concubine has only been in the household for a few days, and she's already putting on airs as the mistress." Before I could finish speaking, hurried footsteps suddenly sounded from outside. Nanny Liu, who served my mother-in-law, rushed in a panic. "It's terrible, madam. Concubine Mai is bleeding." When I rushed to the Lotus Pavilion, the entire courtyard was filled with the smell of blood. Maya lay curled on the couch, her face deathly pale, with a shocking red stain spreading beneath her on the mattress. Pei Yu stood outside the screen, his fists clenched so tightly they creaked. This didn't seem like an act. The pain and regret in his eyes were almost overflowing. "My grandson." Mother-in-law trembled as she reached out to touch Maya's sweat-drenched forehead, then turned and slapped Bai Yuro across the face. The sound was so sharp it startled the thrushes under the eaves. The pearl hairpin at Bai Yuro's temple fell to the ground with a crack, shattering into 3 pieces. "Mother," Bai Yuro covered her face, tears welling in her eyes. "Your daughter-in-law only." "Only what?" Mother-in-law's hand trembled as she pointed at Bai Yuro's nose. "Do you think I don't know? Bai Yuro, how could you be so cruel? That was Yu's flesh and blood." Pei Yu's temple throbbed with bulging veins, his hand gripping Bai Yuro's wrist so tightly it seemed he might crush the bone. "Ruer, you've let me down so much. You knew full well this was." He swallowed the rest of his words, his neck flushing crimson with anger, startling Bai Yuro into trembling as tears fell. The mother-in-law slammed the teacup heavily onto the table, splashing Biluochun tea over half of the Su embroidery tablecloth. "Pass on my words," she said, rising with a livid face. "From today onward, concubine Mai is elevated to a noble concubine, and her monthly allowance is doubled. As for Bai," she cast a cold glance at Bai Yuro's pale face, "she is confined to her quarters for 3 months and must copy their admonitions for women 100 times. I heard that after Bai Yuro returned, she smashed the entire set of rain-over sky-blue porcelain teacups. The shards of porcelain flew up and cut the back of Pei Yu's hand as he tried to mediate. Furious, he stormed off and spent the night in Maya's room. When Shushu recounted this to me, I was under the lamplight, flipping through the account books after cutting off the subsidies for the second household a few days earlier. Pei Yu had indeed grown restless, accustomed to a life of luxury and extravagance. How could he bear a life where even spending a few dozen taels of silver required presenting my tally token? "Guess what, Your Highness?" Shushu stifled a laugh as she massaged my shoulders. "Before dawn today, someone sneaked into the study in the dark and was stopped by the old maids we had stationed there, who thought they were a thief." I burst out laughing. Pei Jin must be in a hurry to get his private stash to support his little sweetheart. It seems his secret hoard is hidden in the study. The next day, I led my people straight to the study. "Search it," I ordered, and the 4 maids personally took action. In no time, the 50,000 taels of silver notes he had hidden in the interlayer of *Zhengguan Jingyao*, along with the deeds for 3 shops and 200 acres of fertile land, were all brought before me. I went to the main room with a beaming smile to pay my respects to my mother-in-law, just as Pei Yu and Bai Yuro were also there. "Is there some happy occasion today? You look so cheerful," my mother-in-law couldn't help but ask when she saw the smile on my face. "Mother, you may not know, but while sorting through the late prince's belongings today, I actually found some private savings he left for the child. It seems he had been saving for the child all along." I pretended not to know and smiled sweetly, completely ignoring the unpleasant expressions on the faces of the 3 people across from me upon hearing this news. "Since it was Jinna's possession, it naturally belongs to the child in your womb. Take good care of it for him." My mother-in-law's smile was somewhat forced, but she quickly tried to reassure me with a smile. "In that case, thank you, Mother. I will keep it safe for the child in my womb, as it is, after all, a token of affection from his father who passed away too soon." As I finished speaking, Pei-yu and Bai-yuro's faces grew even darker. Returning to Hungwoo Garden, I took the hot tea handed to me by Shushu and casually remarked, "By the way, have the west courtyard tidied up tomorrow. Just say I'm showing consideration for concubine Mai, who is recovering from a miscarriage, and let her stay there alone to recuperate." Shushu's eyes lit up, and she went out with a smile to make the arrangements. That same day, I heard that another batch of porcelain had been shattered in Tingyu Pavilion. My belly has grown even larger, and nowadays I mostly recline on the soft couch, listening to the little maid tell me amusing stories from the estate. "My lady," Shahua lifted her skirt and hurried in, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "There's a commotion over at the stables." I casually tossed the jade ruyi I had been fiddling with back into the sandalwood box, my fingertips brushing over the carved twin lotus flowers on the lid. "Is it the black horse with white hooves that belongs to the young master?" "Exactly." The little maid stomped her foot and gestured. "That beast went wild as soon as it saw the second young master. 4 grooms couldn't hold back the reins. A piece of the second young master's robe was torn off. And he's over there fuming right now." I burst out laughing, startling the parrot under the eaves into flapping its wings. This dark cloud treading on snow was the fierce horse Pei Jin tamed at 16. Back then, he looked so dashing riding it to escort me into his mansion. Yet now he's been publicly stripped of his dignity by his own steed. "Let's go take a look." Turning past the winding corridor, the sound of a horse neighing, sharp as tearing silk, could be heard from afar. Dark cloud treading on snow was chained to a post, its mane speckled with bits of straw, its front hooves scraping several white marks into the bluestone slab. "Second young master, be careful." The coachman hastily pulled on the reins. "This beast is acting up today, going wild at the sight of you." Pei-yu stood 10 paces away, the hem of his moon-white brocade robe stained with grass clippings, his face looking even more unpleasant than horse dung. "What's this act you're putting on?" "Second brother," I asked, supporting my waist as I slowly approached, "are you trying to imitate your elder brother taming horses? Be careful not to hurt your bones." Pei-yu's neck veins bulged, gripping the broken whip in 2 pieces as he forced a smile. "Thank you for your concern, sister-in-law. This beast is just too wild to tame." Before he could finish his sentence, the black horse suddenly reared up, its hooves the size of bowls narrowly grazing past his ear. I watched as the beast's large, bell-like eyes fixed intently on its former master, and suddenly remembered the story told by a merchant from the western regions that the sweat-blood steed could distinguish between loyalty and treachery. If you ask me, animals are more honest than people. I took the alfalfa grass handed to me by the attendant, and the black horse with white hooves immediately lowered its head to eat obediently, since it's wary of strangers. "It would be safer for you to ride in a sedan chair from now on, second brother." As the due date approached, my princess mother sent 4 midwives to stay at the Marquis's residence early in the morning, and the Empress also dispatched the head of the Imperial Hospital to be on standby. Finally, the moment arrived, and after enduring 12 hours of intense pain, I gave birth to a chubby, fair-skinned son. The palace's rewards flowed into the Marquis's estate like a stream. I understood in my heart that this was my uncle, the Emperor, backing me up. It was a silent warning to the others in the Marquis's estate not to entertain any devious ideas. Having safely passed the full moon, Shushu came in holding a sandalwood box. "The second young master sent this, saying it's a gift for his nephew's full moon." Lifting the lid of the box, beneath the mutton-fat jade longevity lock lay a sheet of gold-flecked paper. "Live a long life," I murmured, examining the bold, flowing calligraphy by the candlelight, nearly spilling my teacup in a fit of laughter. Pei Jin must have been so frantic that he forgot to imitate Pei-yu's delicate, flower-like script. The next day, when paying respects in the main courtyard, I deliberately handed the gilded paper to my mother-in-law. "Mother, look." Second brother's calligraphy is increasingly taking on the style of the eldest brother. By Euro's teacup clattered against the table, splashing cherry-red liquid onto her apricot-colored skirt. Pei-yu turned as pale as paper, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down as he struggled to speak. After all, they are brothers bound by blood. The Marchioness's fingertips traced the ink marks on the paper, her phoenix eyes sweeping over Pei-yu's trembling fingers. It's just that you are used to dislike copying calligraphy the most, but now he seems to have changed his ways, princess. The lady says she wishes to see the young master. I was reviewing the account books when Shushu entered, carrying a swaddled baby in her arms. The child had just turned 1 month old, his face as pink and tender as peach blossoms in March, yet he was growing to look more and more like his father. I straightened my collar. It's just the right time for me to go pay my respects. As I walked to the corridor of the main courtyard, I heard suppressed sobbing coming from inside. Through the carved window lattice, I saw Pei-yu kneeling at my mother-in-law's feet, his forehead pressed against the blue brick floor. Mother, your son knows he was wrong. His shoulders trembled violently. Please help me win back Joey's heart. The prayer beads in my mother-in-law's hand struck his back with a sharp crack. You worthless thing. Now you realize your mistake. When you pretended to be dead, why didn't you think about the consequences? I deliberately made my footsteps heavier, and the commotion inside immediately stopped. When I entered, Pei-yu had already stood up, his eyes still red. My mother-in-law forced a smile and took the child. Come, let grandma hold you. Good boy, call me daddy. Pei-yu suddenly leaned in, his fingers gently touching the baby's cheek. All the blood in my body rushed to my head. Second uncle, how utterly absurd. I snatched the child back, though my husband has passed. Not just anyone can be my child's father. Pei-yu froze in place, and the teacup in my mother-in-law's hand clattered to the ground. His Adam's apple bobbed, and fine beads of sweat seeped from beneath his jade crown. Sister-in-law, you've misunderstood. My elder brother passed so suddenly. I merely thought the child shouldn't grow up without a father's guidance. What a touching display of brotherly affection. I sneered, with my brother's body not yet cold. Some people have already called for water 3 times behind the morning hall. How can such character be fit to teach my son? Joey, the mother-in-law sternly cut her off, her face already turning ashen. Pei-yu's handsome face flushed crimson, his fingers clenched tightly in his sleeves, making a faint cracking sound. My mother-in-law suddenly clutched her chest and fell backward. As the maids cried out and rushed forward, I watched coldly as Pei-yu scrambled to help her, only to have him grab my sleeve in the chaos. Are you determined to drive the whole family to ruin? He hissed, his voice low and fierce. I shook off his hand and deliberately raised my voice. What are you saying? Second brother, mother's condition is an old ailment. Hurry and call the imperial physician. Turning to Shushu, I said, go fetch the Angong Nyohuang pills bestowed by Her Majesty the Empress. Pei-yu's expression instantly changed. Those pills were a royal gift. If mother used them, the entire capital would know by tomorrow that something major had happened in the Marquis's household. No need. Mother suddenly caught her breath. It's just an old ailment. I'll be fine after some rest. Holding the child, I turned and walked away, leaving behind a meaningful remark. Don't worry, mother. I will make sure to teach the heir well, so he remembers who his true family is. Hearing the sound of porcelain shattering inside, a cold smile curled at the corner of my lips. Since Pei Jin is so eager to reclaim his position as the heir, I should make him understand that some things, once lost, can never be retrieved. Shushu, however, whispered beside me. The lady secretly pinched her philtrum just now, upon returning to Hungwu Garden. I had someone secretly keep an eye on by Euro's courtyard. Princess, the second young mistress is with child. As Shushu lifted the curtain, I was embroidering a tiger head shoe for the child. The silver needle paused at my fingertip. pricking out a drop of blood. He actually managed to conceive a child during the mourning period. The joyful news from Tinghe Pavilion spread through the Marquis's estate as if on wings, reaching every corner in less than half a day. When I carried the child to the main courtyard to pay my respects, Bayuro was leaning in Pei Yu's embrace, her delicate fingers gently stroking her flat stomach. "Congratulations, second brother." My smile was brighter than the begonias in the courtyard. "Now mother can finally rest easy." My mother-in-law was indeed beaming with joy, repeatedly instructing the kitchen to prepare nourishing tonics. However, news of a pregnancy during the mourning period is bound to invite criticism of the Marquis's household. The smile on my mother-in-law's face froze instantly, and Bayuro turned deathly pale. "Sister-in-law, why must you be so aggressive?" He smiled at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were icy. I sneered coldly. "So he's realized that there can be more than one child. Pei Jin's move is clever, but unfortunately, he overlooked one thing. At the third watch of the night, I rose, draped in my robe, and retrieved a small enamel box from a hidden compartment. Moonlight filtered through the window screen, illuminating the shimmering medicinal powder inside. Your Highness, are you truly going to?" Shushu's voice trembled. "Don't worry," I said with a light laugh. Pinching the medicinal powder between my fingers, "It's just enough to make our little young master fall ill." 3 days later, the child indeed developed a high fever. I sent a request to the palace overnight, and the head of the imperial hospital hurried over with 2 imperial physicians, while the entire Marquis household was in chaos. I personally led a search of the wet nurse's room. Sure enough, I found a porcelain bottle of poison hidden in a secret compartment by her bedside. I slipped the bottle into my sleeve, a cold glint flashing in my eyes. "Speak, who ordered you to harm your master?" The wet nurse collapsed on the ground, trembling like a sieve. The second young master said, "If the little young master were gone, his son would be." The sound of the imperial physicians gasping in shock was particularly clear. With reddened eyes, I handed the testimony to the Marchioness, who fainted as soon as she read it. 3 days later would mark the first anniversary of Pei Jin's feigned death. Over the past year, I had been waiting for this opportunity not only to seek justice for the deceased Pei Yu but also to completely eliminate this hidden threat. Now, with solid evidence in hand, it was time to close the net. Finally, the anniversary Memorial Day arrived, and the Marquis's residence held a religious ceremony. I deliberately invited my mother, the princess, to attend, along with half of the capital's nobility. Bayuro, dressed in plain mourning clothes, followed behind Pei Yu, her belly already slightly swollen. Today, besides mourning my late husband, I stood in the center of the mourning hall, my voice clear and bright. I also ask all of you to bear witness. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the room was shocked. Pei Yu's wine cup clattered to the ground, and Bayuro's face turned deathly pale. My mother-in-law was about to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. "A year ago, someone faked their death to deceive the world." I slowly rose to my feet, taking a small porcelain bottle from my sleeve. "And there are even those who dare to plot against the royal bloodline. Lady Zhao Yi, you." Pei Yu suddenly stood up, a flicker of panic flashing in his eyes. "Pei Jin, it's time to end your act." I sneered coldly. "Did you think I didn't know about your faked death? Did you think I didn't know about you bribing the wet nurse to poison me?" Shushu presented a sandalwood box, inside which lay the wet nurse's signed confession, and Pei Jin's personal seal. "This can't be," Bayuro suddenly screamed. "Jin Lang's seal is clearly." The hall erupted in an uproar. Pei Jin's face turned ashen. "No, Zhaoyi, please let me explain." The princess's mother slammed the table and stood up. "Guards, take this traitor who deceived the emperor away." Before her words had fully faded, the sound of gongs clearing the way suddenly came from outside, and imperial guards filed in. the leading eunuch unrolled a bright yellow imperial edict. By the decree of the emperor, who receives the mandate of heaven, Pei Jin, heir to the Marquis of Yongning, has deceived the emperor and overstepped his authority. He is hereby stripped of his title and exiled 3,000 miles. The emperor's furious edict arrived even faster than expected. Bai Yuro knelt before her mother-in-law, weeping and pleading, her forehead bleeding profusely from kowtowing. "Mother," she clutched at the hem of the marquise's robe, "I beg you, please, for the sake of the child, Jin Lang." Silence. The marquise shook her off. "How dare you still, madam?" Maya suddenly rushed out and knelt down. "I have urgent news to report." She unfurled a spring palace painting, on which the entwined figures were unmistakably Bai Yuro and a guard from the Marquis's estate. "The bastard in that wretch's belly," Maya sneered, "belongs to the guard captain." Bai Yuro lunged at Maya like a madwoman but was restrained by the maids. The mother-in-law trembled with rage. "Force the medicine down, force it down." 3 days later, news of Bai Yuro's illness and death spread throughout the Marquis's estate. I sat in the main hall of Hungwu Garden, watching as my in-laws personally placed the heir's golden seal on my son's swaddling clothes. "Princess," Maya knelt at the foot of the steps, "I beg you to let this servant leave the estate." I caressed the jade Rui scepter. "You have rendered great service. This servant dares not claim credit." She pressed her forehead against the blue bricks. "I only beg for my life." I suddenly remembered that day under the Osmanthus tree, the way her golden hairpin swayed and jingled. "Go." I tossed her a bag of gold leaves. "Never return to the capital." As dusk fell, Shushu asked if I wanted to see Pei Jin one last time. I shook my head, turned around, and picked up the babbling child. Outside the window, the autumn rain pattered, knocking down the crabapple blossoms in the courtyard. As the rain grew heavier, Shushu tiptoed in to add charcoal. The silver charcoal crackled in the gilded brazier, making the golden seal in my hand shine even more brilliantly. "Princess, the Marquis has sent someone to ask if the ancestral hall will be opened as usual tomorrow." My fingertips brushed over the fierce swanny on the seal knob. "Open it, of course we will." I looked up and caught a glimpse of myself in the bronze mirror, the tassels hanging from the golden phoenix hairpin swaying slightly. "Have the sewing workshop work overnight to prepare the auspicious robes for the heir." Just as Shushu was about to withdraw, I suddenly remembered something. "Wait. Go to the storeroom and fetch that jade longevity lock, the one that was presented as tribute earlier." "Princess, are you planning to take the heir into the ancestral hall?" I gaze out the window at the crabapple blossoms beaten down by the rain. Inside the ancestral hall, incense smoke curls upward. My in-laws are already seated solemnly at the head of the hall. As I step over the threshold holding the child, the murmurs of the clan elders abruptly cease. The Marquis personally records the heir's name into the imperial genealogy, while my mother-in-law fastens the family heirloom jade pendant around the child's waist. Just as the ceremony concludes, a sudden commotion erupts outside. The steward rushes in, flustered. "My lord, someone from the palace has arrived." The eunuch unfurled the bright yellow silk scroll, and everyone in the room knelt down in a flurry. It turned out that the emperor, my uncle, had not only approved the petition for the heir to inherit the title but also bestowed upon the child the title of Lord of Chang'an, an honor reserved only for imperial princes. As I kowtowed in gratitude, I heard my in-laws' suppressed gasps, rising to receive the imperial decree. Its weighty heft left me dazed for a moment. On the way back to the courtyard, Shushu whispered to me, "Pei, that person was escorted out of the city before dawn." I nodded. Then suddenly saw Maya standing by the side gate with a bundle in hand. From afar, she bowed slightly towards me, dressed in plain clothes with a simple hairpin, no longer radiant as before. I signaled the guards to let her pass. With one last glance at the vermilion gate of the Marquis's estate, She turned and disappeared into the carriage without looking back. That night I had a dream. In it, Pei Jin stood in the snow wearing shackles, while Bai Yuro, dressed in red, beckoned to him from beneath a plum tree. When I woke, the pillow beside me was cold, and outside the window, the waning moon hung like a hook. 3 days later, while sorting through Pei Jin's old belongings, Shushu found a journal at the bottom of a chest. Inside, every secret meeting between him and Bai Yuro was recorded in detail, but on the last page, it read, "The sachet Lady Jowie gave today has crooked stitches." I sneered and tossed the journal into the brazier, where the flames suddenly leaped high. Amid the ashes, the character you faintly appeared, only to be torn apart by the wind. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the child's 100-day celebration. The princess mother arrived in grand style, bringing gifts from every household. During the banquet, someone mentioned Pei Jin, saying that on his way to exile, he had tried to escape and had his leg broken by the officials. Serves him right. The princess mother spat, then turned to play with the child. Our little Lord Chang'an is 10,000 times better than those scoundrels. I smiled as I poured wine for the guests, catching a glimpse of the marquise secretly wiping away tears. When the night grew late and the guests had dispersed, she suddenly took my hand. "Jowie, your mother has wronged you. You speak too seriously." "Mother," I replied, clasping her trembling hand in return, "we are all family." She nodded through her tear-filled eyes, not noticing the handkerchief I had tightly clenched in my sleeve. Embroidered on it in gold thread was the character Jin, which he had personally pinned to my wedding gown on our wedding day. Autumn gave way to winter, and when the first snow fell, Shushu said the Marquis had fallen ill. The imperial physician repeatedly shook his head after taking his pulse. I personally attended to his medicine, but secretly reduced a dose of ginseng in the prescription. On the 8th day of the 12th lunar month, news of the Marquis's death shook the capital. Dressed in mourning white, I knelt before the spirit tablet, listening as the Ministry of Rights officials read out the posthumous edict. When the words "Lord Chang'an inherits the title of Marquis of Yongning" were spoken, the child suddenly giggled in the wet nurse's arms. The hall full of guests exchanged bewildered glances, while I alone gazed at the fierce soul-suppressing beast carved on the coffin, a faint smile curling at the corner of my lips. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I snatched a bookworm from the roadside to be my husband in the stronghold. The bookworm looks refined, fair-skinned, and handsome. My eyes lit up. With a father like that, the child is sure to be smart. I wanted to consummate the marriage, but he refused to the death. I tried my best to make him happy, but it was all in vain. But just as I decided to let him go that very night, he suddenly changed his nature and pushed me down onto the bed. After a night of satisfaction, the bookworm disappeared from then on. When we met again, he was the prefect sent by the court to suppress the bandits. Wearing a crimson official robe that exuded an imposing air of nobility, with one hand holding a knife and the other caressing my pointed belly, I looked at him coldly. Bah, not only a bookworm, but also a big liar. I met a bookworm at the foot of Tsangjuan Mountain. He had delicate features and was exceptionally handsome. My heart started pounding after just a few glances. At that moment, he was staring at the unripe wheat ears in the field, swallowing his saliva, looking rather amusing. I casually tossed him the last piece of wheat cake I had on me. The bookworm timidly glanced at the large knife at my waist, then hurriedly lowered his head to eat the cake. He ate quickly, but not in a ravenous manner. My heart beats even more joyfully. After finishing the pancake, he clasped his hands in a respectful bow. He said he was on his way to study at the capital's academy but was robbed clean by a villain disguised as a carriage driver. Your life-saving kindness, I will never forget. May I ask the name of this heroic lady? I took a few steps back, waving my hands repeatedly. The bookworm spoke in such a pretentious and convoluted way that it gave me a headache. In the distance, dust billowed along the mountain path as a group of riders approached, with the leader carrying a large blade on his shoulder. Just as I was about to step forward, I suddenly stumbled and was pulled into the wheat field by the bookworm. He pressed my head down as we crouched, warily looking ahead. I've heard there are bandits on the nearby mountain, and they are extremely brutal. A lone heroine like you, with 2 fists, can hardly fend off 4 hands. It would be better to hide. This bookworm is quite amusing. I burst out laughing, stood up, jumped onto the ridge, and waved toward the distance. The person approached, standing with fists clasped. Boss. The bookworm suddenly stiffened all over, looking at me in disbelief. I raised an eyebrow and looked at him. Bookworm, what's your name? I am Jumubai, fair lady. You are. I am no fair lady. Bookworm, you've eaten my pancake, so you're mine now. My village still needs a husband to keep it in order. You should come with me, father said. Scholars have clever minds, and the children they bear are smart. Jumubai's face instantly turned deathly pale. No, it's not possible, it's not possible. I nodded to myself. Father also said that men care about their pride, even if they feel capable. They might still say they're not. The brothers excitedly swarmed forward and, in no time, had him securely tied onto the horse. I anxiously urged them repeatedly. Gently, don't hurt him. Jumubai was powerless to resist, his face pale with fear, tears welling up in his eyes. What a pitiful sight. I cleared my throat, pinched his chin, and uttered our bandit's classic line. Why cry? Follow me, and I guarantee you'll eat well, drink fine, and live as happily as an immortal. Everyone burst into laughter. I mounted the horse, pulling Jumubai in front of me, and waved my hand grandly. Brothers, let's go back and get married. The village bustled with excitement and activity. During the wedding ceremony, Jumubai kept struggling, muttering classical Chinese phrases. The brothers looked at each other in confusion. My head ached. I simply had 2 brothers tie him up, gag him, and press his shoulders to complete the ceremony with me, full and satisfied. I carried a roast chicken and 2 steamed buns back to my room. Jumubai lay on his side, his hands still bound behind his back. The chest rises and falls, the sound of breathing clearly audible. Gazing at his handsome sleeping face, I happily leaned in and planted a kiss on his cheek. He jolted awake and immediately struggled to move to the foot of the bed. I cleared my throat softly, trying to keep my voice as low as possible. Don't be afraid, little bookworm, I'll untie the rope for you. Jumubai was half convinced and half doubtful, eyeing me warily, but he didn't refuse. The rope was untied, and I handed him the roast chicken and steamed buns. You must be hungry, eat quickly. I saved these especially for you. He swallowed hard. I'm not hungry. Yeah, right. As if I didn't hear his stomach growling like an empty city defense plan several times already, I stuffed the steamed bun into his hand, but he reached out to block it, causing the bun to tumble to the ground and roll far away. The pure white steamed bun was coated in a layer of dirt. My expression instantly darkened. Pick it up. It's not easy to have a bite to eat in this world. If you waste food again, even if you starve to death in the future, I won't care about you. Jumubai pursed his lips tightly, wanting to say something but holding back. He had no choice but to bend down, pick up the steamed bun, and sit angrily at the table, eating it clean. He looked so handsome even while eating. Looking at this face, my earlier anger has mostly subsided. He finishes his meal gracefully, then carefully cleans his hands and face with a handkerchief. A thought strikes me, and I lean in closer. You scholars all say, a moment of spring night is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. My dear husband, let's not waste any more time. As I spoke, I grabbed his wrist and pushed him down onto the bed. Jumubai was no match for me in strength. and I easily tore open his clothes, revealing half of his chest. I never expected that a bookworm who looks like he couldn't even lift a chicken would have such a firm waist and abdomen. I kept rubbing back and forth. It was smooth and elastic, not like those big, burly guys in the village, each one as hard as a rock. I found it fascinating and couldn't help but give it a gentle bite. Jumubai's breath hitched, and he struggled even more fiercely. I looked up to see. His entire face was flushed red, his eyes shimmering with tears, very tempting, and also very unwilling. Father said, "We should be principled bandits." I sighed, sitting up gloomily and propping my chin in my hand to look at him. "Are you really that unwilling? I just want to have a child with you, that's all." "All right, if you really don't want to be my husband in this stronghold, I'll let you go once I'm pregnant with your child, okay?" Jumubai's expression shifted repeatedly, his eyes nearly rolling to the back of his head, before he finally gritted out 2 words through clenched teeth. "Absurd. A beauty is a beauty. Even rolling her eyes looks lovely." I touch my own face. Could it be that I'm just too ugly? That shouldn't be the case. Father says I look exactly like Mother. My mother was an exceptionally beautiful woman. As Father puts it, if Mother hadn't had nowhere to go back then, he wouldn't have gotten such a bargain. I turned over, lying on the bed with a hint of frustration. With Jumubai in his current state, consummating the marriage was out of the question. Seeing that I had stopped moving, his flushed face gradually returned to normal. He cautiously shifted to the foot of the bed, still clutching his collar tightly. "This is not proper, young lady. Marriage has always been a matter of parental arrangement and matchmaking. As a woman, you must never behave as you did today." Nag, nag, nag. So annoying. I rolled over and sat up abruptly. "My parents are already dead. Should I find a matchmaker to propose to you first?" Jumubai choked on his own saliva and immediately started coughing violently. I lay back down again, staring blankly at the canopy above the bed. "What will it take for you to have a child with me?" He finally managed to stop coughing and asked me intermittently, Why do you want to have a child with me? You're good looking, and you can read. A child with you would definitely be smart. Father said that smart children can study, become officials in the future, and once they become officials, no one will bully us anymore." I murmured in a daze. Before falling into a deep sleep, I faintly saw Jumubai's lips move slightly. It seemed like he said something. The wedding night didn't go as planned, and I felt a bit disheartened. The aunties in the village say, men just need a little coaxing. I thought about how my father used to coax my mother and decided to follow suit. The wildflowers by the roadside are lovely, so I picked a few to arrange in a vase for him. The apricots from the back hill are sweet too, so I sent a basket to satisfy his cravings. The guard dog Big Yellow had a puppy, Little Yellow, so I brought one to him to pass the time. The scenery at Ishin Gorge is beautiful, so I personally took him there for a spring outing. Jumubai accidentally twisted his ankle, and with a wave of my hands, I scooped him up into my arms, ignoring the pain in his feet. He struggled to jump down and dashed off into the distance. A few days passed, and he started avoiding me even more. TSK. So hard to coax. In the end, Granny said, bookworms must love books the most. I scratched my head, reluctantly opened the chest my mother left me, and gave him 2 books, not forgetting to add, this was left to me by my mother, so don't break it. After receiving it, Jumubai was first surprised, then the corners of his mouth lifted slightly as he smiled. I was stunned, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. How utterly useless. Before long, the wheat in the back mountain ripened. The experienced elder said that rain was expected in a few days, and we needed to dry all the wheat and store it in the granary before the rain came. With a wheat ear in my mouth, I lay on a haystack piled as high as a small hill, gazing at the stars. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted Jumubai wandering along the ridge of the field, and I happily waved to him. He climbed up the haystack using both hands and feet, handing me 2 steamed buns. "Aren't you bandits? Why are you farming yourselves?" I took a bite of the bun and mumbled back at him. "Who says bandits can't farm? Who made that rule?" Jumubai's throat bobbed, clearly choked by my words. I smiled and continued munching on the bun. "Bookworm, since you can study and take the imperial exams, your family must be quite well off, right? Look at the people in my village. Some had their land seized by landlords, while others offended the county magistrate. That corrupt official is ruthless and cruel, driving many to the point of losing their families and homes. If you don't become a bandit, you'll just wait to die. If it were you, what would you choose?" Jumubai remained silent for a long time, and when he spoke again, his voice was hoarse and strained. "But being bandits is not a sustainable path in the long run. What will you do if the court sends troops to suppress you?" I furrowed my brows, feeling somewhat dazed. My father had said the same thing. At that time, he was on his last breath, yet he stubbornly refused to let go, his lips repeatedly murmuring about me and the brothers in the stronghold. I snapped back to reality, looked up at the starry night sky, and felt a slight sting in my eyes. My father is a bandit, and I was born a little bandit. Besides being a bandit, I don't know what else I could do. But my father, the people in the village, and we've never done anything bad. We just want to have enough to eat. If we leave the mountain, the whole village will have no money, no land, and no way to survive." Jumubai's brows were tightly furrowed, and he remained silent for a long time. I took the opportunity to touch his hand and asked sincerely once more, "So, are you really not considering having a child with me?" Without waiting for his answer, I jumped down from the haystack with a big smile, my eyes crinkling with joy. "Come on down, I'll catch you." Under the shimmering moonlight, Jumubai's expression was somewhat complex. If there was any difference from usual, it was perhaps a touch more gentleness. After the wheat harvest, it indeed rained for 3 consecutive days. Jumubai sat at the table by the window, quietly reading a book accompanied by the sound of rain. The scene was truly a feast for the eyes. I watched with an itch in my heart, occasionally leaning in to touch his little hand or tug at his hair. After spending this time together, Jumubai no longer seemed to mind my little antics. Of course, it could also be that he realized there was no escaping them anyway. I secretly rejoiced, feeling that there was finally some progress. After the rain stopped, the atmosphere in the village began to grow tense. The brothers took turns patrolling and keeping watch, adopting a posture of being fully prepared for battle. Jumubai was puzzled, so I pointed to the neighboring mountain and explained it to him. "That's Tiger Head Village. They're used to robbing and plundering, and they're all lazy and gluttonous. Knowing we've harvested our grain, they come to rob us every year at this time." Jumubai listened with a furrowed brow. I thought he was scared, so I quickly added, "Don't worry, our village is in a great location, easy to defend and hard to attack. There's only one road up the mountain, and the narrow gorge at the back has been blocked by huge boulders. They won't get in easily." In the end, my big mouth spoke those words into existence. The people from Tiger Head Village somehow got their hands on explosives and blasted a gap right through that huge boulder. A dozen or so men barged in with an intimidating air. I stood guard at the entrance of the granary with the brothers from the village, our knives gleaming brightly in our hands, amid the chaos. I caught a glimpse of a blade poised above Jumubai's head, ready to strike at any moment. My body reacted instinctively. I took that slash with my own shoulder. The intense pain felt as if it was splitting me in half. Gritting my teeth, I endured it, kicked the enemy away, and shielded Jumubai behind me. "Didn't I tell you to hide with the old ladies? What are you doing out here causing trouble? Stay put." I picked up the broadsword and was about to charge forward again. From behind me came a soft sigh from Jumubai. Bang! The sound was sharp and brief, and I turned around abruptly. Jumubai held a musket in his hand, its barrel still emitting a faint wisp of smoke. No one expected that firearms under the control of the imperial court would appear here, yet just that one sound was enough to intimidate everyone present. The Tiger Head Fortress bandits fled in haste, not even having time to utter a single threat. In this battle, 7 or 8 of our brothers in the fortress were injured, but fortunately, none of them were in life-threatening danger. The most severely injured person turned out to be me. The blade fell from my left shoulder and swept across my back, leaving a deep wound that exposed the bone. The excruciating pain made me dizzy, and I collapsed as darkness clouded my vision. When I woke up again, everything around me was silent. Ju Mubai lay by the bedside, seemingly asleep. The flickering candlelight cast upon his handsome profile, with a high-nose bridge and features as exquisite as a painting. My heart seemed to skip a beat, and even my breathing slowed by half. Move a little, just a little more, peck. Finally, I kissed the corner of his rosy lips, warm and soft. I was completely satisfied, my lips curling into an unconscious smile. Ju Mubai suddenly opened his eyes. I was startled. My arm went weak and I fell back onto the bed, but I bumped into the wound. And immediately the pain made me grimace. He flusteredly helped me lie down properly, then brought water to my lips. I was overwhelmed by the favor, my eyes fixed intently on him. Ju Mubai's earlobes grew increasingly red. He cleared his throat softly and awkwardly averted his gaze. During the period of recuperation, Ju Mubai was almost always available at a moment's notice, ready to fulfill any request. Every time I changed the dressing, he blushes all the way down to his neck before I even take off my clothes, but the movements of his hands were gentle and soft, as if tickling the very core of my heart. There were even a few times when I secretly took advantage and touched his chest, and he bit his lip and endured it. I truly felt from the bottom of my heart that this stab wound was worth it. However, I've always been the type to push my luck, so, during the last bandage change, I pinned him down on the bed once again. Bookworm. Let's have a child with me, okay? Her lips gently covered his, her tongue probing back and forth. I thought that, at the very least, we had faced life and death together and understood each other's hearts, but Ju Mubai, with strength from who knows where, pushed me away forcefully. I was stunned. The half-slipped garment still hung on the shoulder, but all the strength in the body suddenly drained away. It truly was meaningless. I sighed, swallowing a trace of bitterness in my throat. Forget it. Considering you've done a favor for the village this time, I won't force you anymore. Tomorrow, you shall leave the mountain. Ju Mubai's lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to say something. I put on my clothes and turned to leave without a word. Not a single word that came out of his mouth was something I wanted to hear. Having lived for 18 years, aside from my father and mother, I have never cared so much about anyone else. Finally meeting someone I like, only to find they don't like me back. By evening, I couldn't help but feel a bit overwhelmed by melancholy, so I simply grabbed a jug of wine and drank myself into a stupor. When the wine took effect, Ju Mubai pushed the door open. Wrapped in moonlight, he walked straight to the bed, pressed me down, and tore open my clothes. Really want a child? Nonsense, of course I do. I still don't know. What's your name? My gaze was hazy. Hongying. My name is Xu Hongying, a knight of passion. When I woke up, he was already gone from beside the pillow. Only that flintlock lay lonely on the table. He left me the thing that could save my life. In the second month after Ju Mubai left, I was diagnosed with a pregnancy. After learning I was pregnant, I also sent my brothers down the mountain to investigate. I inquired from various sources, but there was still no news of Ju Mubai. After a brief period of loss and sadness, I gave up. What does it matter if there's no man? This child is destined to be a child of the old Xu family and will take my surname, Xu. The child grew day by day, and earth-shaking changes also took place at the foot of the mountain. The old emperor passed away, and a new emperor ascended the throne, the newly appointed prefect acted swiftly and decisively, punishing many corrupt officials. Among them was that wicked county magistrate. He reinvestigated old cases, returned land to the people, and his reputation for integrity and honesty was even sung about in the bandit dens. Some of the brothers in the stronghold had become bandits under my father precisely because their land had been seized. Now that the government is planning to redistribute the land, they are naturally tempted. I have no intention of stopping them. If we could have land to farm and food to eat, it would be better than hiding in the mountains as bandits. However, before this matter could be properly arranged, the prefect arrived with his troops, surrounding Sungjuan Mountain in a grand display of force. The first to suffer was Tiger Head Village. No amnesty, no surrender. The Imperial Army cleared the way, with the musket squad leading the charge, and no one dared to resist. Dozens of people were tied up in a line and the mountain stronghold, unwilling to return to that den of wolves. She married my father, who had fallen in love with her at first sight. My father was originally a bodyguard, but he was framed by the county magistrate for losing the goods he was escorting. With no other choice, he had to take a few brothers and become outlaws. Although they were bandits, they never burned, killed, or looted. They merely used the name of bandits to claim land as their home, seeking a place to settle. Thinking of my father and mother, I couldn't help but lower my gaze, my nose tingling with emotion. My uncle, the general, was already weeping uncontrollably. "How did your mother die?" I choked up, my voice hoarse. "She was fleeing the capital and had to camp in the wilderness, where she accidentally ate something poisonous. The poison gradually spread to her lungs and internal organs, and there was no cure. I was 8 years old when she succumbed to the poison and passed away, and not 3 years after mother's death, father followed her. At that time, I had not yet come of age." Uncle covered his face and wept bitterly. "I've been looking for her. I've been searching for almost 20 years. I sighed and comforted softly. "Uncle, don't cry. Mother was actually quite happy when she was alive. My father loved her dearly. She didn't suffer." The baby in my belly sensed my emotions and gave a gentle kick. Ju Mubai seemed to notice something and looked over nervously. I kept a straight face and slapped away his outstretched hand. "One thing at a time. He hasn't even explained how he deceived me yet, so don't even think about touching my child." After a long while, my uncle finally calmed down slowly, his gaze sharpened, suddenly shooting towards Ju Mubai. "Is the child in her belly yours?" Ju Mubai nodded somewhat awkwardly. "You are the Emperor's study companion, always far away in the capital." My uncle's gaze fell on my stomach. "Lord Ju, shouldn't you give me an explanation?" Ju Mubai cleared his throat lightly, probably finding it a bit difficult to speak. I scratched my head, feeling a rare sense of embarrassment. "Well, uncle, I kind of snatched him back." Seeing that I had started, Ju Mubai no longer hid the truth. The bandits on Sungjuan Mountain had been a long-standing problem, and the court had long intended to clear them out. He was originally ordered to suppress the bandits, but unexpectedly, I snatched him back to the mountain stronghold. He decided to go along with the plan, taking the opportunity to delve deep into the bandits' lair and investigate. Later, the previous emperor passed away, and he was trapped in the capital for several months. As soon as the new emperor ascended the throne, he rushed back to find me without delay. Never did I expect that from just that one time, I would become pregnant with his child. Speaking of how this child came to be, Ju Mubai's cheeks flushed crimson, his handsome face glowing with a delicate charm. I quickly averted my gaze, afraid that beauty might bewitch people. "Let me make it clear first, this child's surname is Shu, and he has nothing to do with you." Ju Mubai looked up anxiously. "But I am the child's father. When you walked away without a care, why didn't you think about being the child's father?" Hongying, I had to return to the capital to report back at that time. "Oh right, thank you for the reminder. I almost forgot that you were deceiving me from start to finish." Uncle's temple veins were throbbing, and he finally slammed the table. "Both of you, shut up." I was so startled that I jumped, and Ju Mubai quickly stepped forward, pressing close to my belly to soothe me. "Baby, be good, don't be scared.
Don't take advantage of the situation. This person is really annoying. My maternal uncle is a great general, and the child's father is the prefect. I have truly experienced the advantages of power and influence. Ju Mubai has already begun verifying the backgrounds and family details of the brothers in the stronghold. If there are any unjust, false, or wrongful cases, they will all be retried and rejudged. Once verified and confirmed to be correct, they can be re-registered and entered into the household registry, and land will be distributed to them. Let everyone lead a proper and peaceful life. I have finally fulfilled my father's dying wish and lived up to his final instructions. Ju Mubai wants me to accompany him back to the government office. My uncle wants me to go back to the military camp with him. I, however, want to stay on the mountain. I have been here since birth. Though the world below is fine, it is not my home. My uncle had military duties to attend to and had to return to his garrison first. Before leaving, he repeatedly urged me not to let Ju Mubai off so easily. If he wants the child to call him father, he must at least go through the proper betrothal and wedding ceremonies. I forced a smile. Let's talk about it later. He doesn't like me anyway, so there's no point in forcing it. Ju Mubai overheard these words. That very night, he slipped into my bedroom wearing only his undergarments. Hongying, I've come to offer myself to share your bed. He held my hand, guiding it slowly over his own brows and eyes, a full forehead, deep-set eyes, and a high, straight nose bridge. Finally, it came to rest on the crimson lips. My fingertips trembled slightly, my throat tightened, and I swallowed hard. Is this considered a beauty trap? From the moment I first laid eyes on Ju Mubai, I had no resistance to this face. I couldn't help but caress his lips. I wanted to kiss him, until the child in my belly protested, kicking me hard. Only then did I snap out of it. Ju Mubai, are you insane? I'm pregnant. His eyes lit up. So, after the baby is born, it'll be okay. I was so furious and embarrassed that I nearly bit my tongue. Okay, my foot. Who are you? Didn't you dislike me? Weren't you unwilling to marry me? Who are you putting on this act for now? Back then, I tried everything to please him, but he wouldn't even spare me a smile, and he lied to me, leaving without saying goodbye. Bah, bookworm, big liar. Hongying, I deceived you first. I know I was wrong, but I truly have feelings for you. Really? Ju Mubai looked desolate, his eyes rimmed red, a beauty shedding tears. My already unsteady heart trembled and wavered, on the verge of succumbing. Ah, I see. Well, then, I guess it depends on how you perform. As the words fell, the corners of his lips lifted into a smile, his brows relaxing. I cursed myself inwardly for being so easily swayed, won over by just a few words. But with a face like Ju Mubai's, who wouldn't be charmed, when the child was about to be born, he once again suggested that I move to the government office with him. Giving birth is, after all, a journey through the gates of hell. It's only reassuring to have a midwife and a doctor by your side, and living in the mountains is ultimately inconvenient. For the sake of myself and my child, I still agreed. Before descending the mountain, I looked at the elegant Ju Mubai, and a thought flashed through my mind. Bookworm, you don't have any cousins, fiancés, or unrequited loves, do you? Suddenly, I remembered the storybooks my mother used to read to me when I was a child. A man who has grown up to be like Ju Mubai is exactly the kind of heartbreaker you'd read about in storybooks. Ju Mubai shook his head with a hint of amusement. I have always been chaste since childhood, with no betrothal or childhood sweetheart. You can rest assured, madam. I was half convinced, half doubting. Really? Never mind, even if there is, it's fine, since you've agreed. This child will take my surname, Shu, when the time comes. I'll take the child back to the mountain stronghold and find him a new father. Ju Mubai's gentlemanly demeanor was on the verge of collapse. Don't even think about it, I pouted, filled with resentment. I could leave whenever I wanted. How could a bookworm like him stop me? The government office is indeed much more impressive than my mountain stronghold. On the first day here, Ju Mubai took me to show my face in front of everyone. The midwife we had arranged in advance has already moved into the backyard. After the doctor from Huachun Hall examined me, he also said that my pregnancy is going well and the fetal position is correct. Ju Mubai could finally breathe a sigh of relief. my belly was growing heavier, and despite my martial arts background, I couldn't help but feel the strain. A few days later, I received a letter from my uncle. He had already written to my aunt in haste, asking her to prepare my dowry. A month ago, the Jew family had already sent someone to propose marriage. Upon learning that my due date was approaching, Mother Jew insisted on coming personally to take care of me, counting the days. They should be arriving very soon. I was taking a walk in the courtyard as instructed by the doctor. Hearing these words, my whole body stiffened, and my heart skipped a beat. Oh no, the wicked mother-in-law from the storybooks is about to make her entrance. Just then, a brisk voice approached from a distance. "Let me see my dear daughter-in-law." A noblewoman in splendid attire pushed the door open and froze in place. A moment later, she screamed, "Where is the midwife? Fetch the midwife quickly." I suddenly looked down and realized that my water had broken, due to being overly nervous upon seeing my mother-in-law. I went into premature labor. I muttered to myself, I really am too useless. But soon, I couldn't afford to dwell on these thoughts. Intense waves of pain surged through me. I could only follow the midwife's instructions, taking deep breaths and pushing with all my might. Jumubai soon arrived as well, hongying, "Don't be afraid, I'm right here with you. You and the baby will be fine." His voice trembled, choked with tears. I felt a pang of heartache and wanted to tell him not to worry. But all my strength had been drained by the child. Fortunately, the baby was full term, and I had been well nourished these past days. After a chaotic flurry of activity, the baby came into the world with a cry. Almost the moment the crying began, Jumubai burst through the door. The midwife smiled and handed the child to him. "Congratulations, sir, it's a little boy." His eyes were red, tears still hanging at the corners. "Take him to show the madam." Looking at the child's wrinkled little face, my heart melted with tenderness. "Mother, I've become a mother too." Mother Jew approached somewhat awkwardly, her face full of guilt. "Daughter-in-law, look. I must have startled you by coming over so suddenly. I really didn't mean to." Jumubai glared at her coldly. "Who told you to come here? Why didn't you ask me first?" Mother Jew immediately widened her eyes and glared back. "You unfilial son, what does it have to do with you that I'm here to see my daughter-in-law? Back in the day, I always wanted a little girl. Who knew I'd end up with a troublemaker like you? Get out, get out. Don't interrupt me bonding with my daughter-in-law." Jumubai refused to leave, holding onto my hand tightly. Mother Jew took off the green jade bracelet from her wrist and insisted on putting it on me. The mother and son went back and forth, until the child's loud crying was heard again. Only then did the two hurriedly go to check on the child, soothing him gently. My eyes suddenly grew moist, warm tears streamed down my cheeks. "Great, father, mother, I have a new home now." After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.